Everything's on fire. Everything's on fire. Everything's on fire.
Happy Tuesday and welcome back, Heat Seekers. Hopefully it was a banger for you this weekend and you got some wins. If you didn't, well, hopefully tonight we can help you with some trends and some things to look at as you move forward. As always, I am Brad. I am joined by some of the best in the business, the most entertaining man in fantasy football entertainment, Anthony Leone. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. How you doing, Brad?
It's we're finally feeling fall here in Fort Wayne, and it's an unfortunate thing. As always, my partner in crime, the man from the north, the king of the north, Mr. Sullivan. How are you, sir?
I'll take it. I've never been the king of anything, so I'll take it. I'm doing good. My wife's remodeling my office. She's painting. It's looking great. And it's nice out. It's not so much fall this week up here. It's summer's made an appearance again. So we're happy.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't mind fall weather, but we had rain and gloom here in Fort Wayne today. And
That's tough. That is tough.
Always sucks. So with that being said, we've got plenty to talk about tonight. Qui-Gon, welcome back again, man. It was good to see you in the chat already. So like we did last week, we are going to continue with how we do things here. So the first probably 30 to 40 minutes, we're going to get through the main content of the show, and then we'll answer all your questions at the end. So make sure you throw them in the chat, and we will get to you. You will not be ignored, but make sure you stick with us. We thank you guys for always just hanging out with us and showing love to the channel. We've been growing leaps and bounds, and it's because of you guys. You guys make us who we are. Bang that like, the subscribe, notification icon, all those things being said. Mr. Sullivan, let's hit those news and notes. Let's get this thing going.
All right, man. We'll start off in Pittsburgh with Ben Roethlisberger, who apparently has a pectoral injury. I found it interesting to find out that Ben had pecs, first and foremost. Sounds like he's going to miss week 3 against Cincinnati. If he doesn't miss it, he's probably going to go all week without practicing and then try to play. So through 2 weeks, he's quarterback 27. He's averaging under 13 and a half points a game. Brad, if you have Ben Roethlisberger on your dynasty roster, what are you doing with him?
You should have traded him before now. I mean, at this point, trading him with an injury is going to be very, very difficult. I can't imagine many folks are going to try to jump all over that. And probably he's your number 2 quarterback, and you don't have anything behind him. So as we get close to bye weeks, you may want to consider trying to lock up whoever the backup really is, whether it's Mason or Dwayne. That may be something you have to consider. In a redraft format, in a 1 QB redraft format, you probably should have already dropped him and picked somebody else up if the injury's real. In a super flex format, you keep him. You try to handcuff him and make sure that you've got somebody in case he really is injured. But I'd wait and see. I mean, like you said, who knew that there were pecs there? So they probably heal up pretty quick because he probably then realizes that he'll be fine. Mr. Leone, what are you doing with him as well? What do you think?
All right, so I'm going to ask you guys a question because it kind of relates to this. I have an outstanding trade offer from a couple days ago for Ben Roethlisberger.
Answer that. Don't wait so long. My goodness, I hate when people wait on trade offers.
How long have you had that offer for?
A few days.
Oh,
that's
my heart.
Worst.
I can trade him right now live on stream.
Okay.
It's a super flex league. He's my 4th quarterback. I can get a 3rd round pick.
Take it. Slam it.
That's
Take
such
it and go.
That's such a terrible. That's such a terrible trade. But yeah,
take it.
Somebody's willing to give you a pick. I mean, you either do that or is this guy really hurting for quarterback?
He's hurting.
Then I would maybe try to get a young player that could.
I tried. He denied it me. I'm going to accept the 3rd.
I would
do it live on air.
You're not doing any better. The guy probably forgot about it. He said it trade to you a month ago.
Yeah,
so.
Well, it's in our league, Sully, so you'll see that notification coming up.
The league? Oh, really?
It's done. I just accepted it.
I'll have to take a look. Take a look. So outside of that league, what are you doing?
Now?
Sully told me to take the trade.
And then he's going to go in the chat.
We have video evidence.
Video
evidence.
I think he's cooked, guys. I think he's absolutely washed. I was hoping that last season it was just coming back off of that major elbow surgery and that he needed a little bit of time, but he looks terrible. His offensive line doesn't look good. if they had anything behind him, I don't even think he'd be there now. So I think a 3rd-round draft choice is an absolute lottery, but it has more upside right now than Ben Roethlisberger, in my opinion. So I think you got the right side of that trade.
Yep.
Yeah, I like
Jaws
it too.
has you.
I
So.
agree. Yeah, I agree. Cool.
Jaws has your back. If Jaws agrees, you're golden. That's
that's damn near gospel. So
yeah.
still talking. Jaws is a longtime friend of the show. We love him,
absolutely.
man. Davis Mills is going to make his first NFL start for the Houston Texans this Thursday night. We've had 2 barn burners of a Thursday night game. We had the Bucks Cowboys, and then we had, who the heck was last week? It was really good. Oh, the Giants and the Washington football team. That was lovely. Now we get the Panthers and the Texans. So we might have a little bit of a letdown this week. Who knows?
The Panthers have been on fire. Top defense in the league and an offense to boot. I mean, Texans are in for probably a good shellacking, at least.
I think Carolina looks pretty darn good. So it's Davis Mills and potentially Jeff Driscoll coming off the practice squad to be his backup. Tells us everything we need to know about the Deshaun Watson saga. Tyrod's gone, or Tyrod Taylor, pardon me, has gone on IR. Anybody on the Texans you're starting this week?
What's the chance they try to activate Deshaun and get him in the game? No practice. Just say, listen.
I think Driscoll starts before Watson starts, and I think Driscoll's cousin starts before Watson starts.
I'm excited to see Davis Mills step in, though. I mean, he's a Stanford kid, big, tall, decent arm. Like, I at least want to see what they have. I mean, you know what Tyrod is. You're going to get a couple games, and you're going to miss a couple games, and you might get a couple games. Like, see what the rookie can do. I mean, this team's rebuilding. It's not like they're competing for anything, right?
Rebuilding with a bunch of 30-year-olds. It's totally how you do it. Are you starting anybody on the Houston Texans this week, Brett?
I think you have to start Brandon Cooks, right? Because he's been balling. I mean, still last week, still producing at a high level. We had this conversation in the tiered videos that we've worked on about what to do with the backfield, and you really can't trust any of them right now. So I wouldn't play him against Carolina because Carolina is a stingy defense against the run currently, and really against the pass. So it's really Brandon Cooks, and that's it for me. I know Anthony Miller. I read that he's supposed to be finally making a debut, but I imagine he'll be hurt by halftime. So.
Oh, it's sad. I really like him.
I do. I love Anthony Miller. What are you doing, Leone? Are you?
Yeah, I would. I would have to say probably start Cooks, but I would really temper expectations. He might be a flex this week, but I wouldn't force the issue. I mean, if you have someone else, I would say maybe like Devonta Smith. Like that's where it gets real close for me. So I don't think you have to force him into your lineup. But of anyone on their team, he's the only one I would consider starting in a flex spot.
Yeah, he feels pretty solid play no matter who the quarterback is because he just gets open. I mean,
the running backs are a mess. You don't know who's going to do what. Week 1, all 3 of them scored. Last week, Phillip Lindsay scored. Ingram is their lead ball carrier. David Johnson seems to be the pass catching downs back. But even if you put them all together, it's hard to find fantasy relevance there. Pass receiving wise, Nico Collins went on IR today with Taylor. Danny Amendola is going to miss the game. So we're down to Chris Connolly. We're down to Anthony Miller if he can go. So I personally would start Brandon Cooks. But yeah, it's some slim pickings, and forget the tight ends. I don't want anybody there. Ferron Brown Akins, or I don't even know if Brevin Jordan's playing. So we'll leave him alone. Speaking of tight ends, after 2 weeks, Rob
Lindsay scored last week.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he had a receiving touchdown.
Well, he scored last week. He still didn't even get 10 fantasy points. But he didn't even get 10 fantasy points. I mean, even if you started Phillip Lindsay, he still didn't really even pan out. So yeah, it's a mess.
Yeah, he scored back-to-back weeks. So, but
they're not giving him any touches. I mean, it's very
correct
usage.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Speaking of tight ends, Rob Gronkowski after 2 weeks is back to being the tight end 1. Look, we've turned back time. Followed by Travis Kelce, and the Detroit Lions owns TJ Hawkinson is 3rd tight end overall. Anthony, who are your top 4 dynasty tight ends right now? Ready, go.
I wish you made it easy and just said top 3, but for me, it's Kittle, Kelce, in no particular order. Kittle, Kelce, Hawkinson. And then on the 4th, it's between Pitts and Andrews. I'm going to lean Andrews.
Are you ignoring Waller in the conversation?
Oh, yeah, Waller too. Yeah. Okay. So let me back up.
But
Waller.
Make it easy on yourself. Do it in order.
Oh, okay, fine. Kelsey, Kittle, Waller, and then Hawkinson.
Brad, who are your top four? Same?
I'd agree with that. Yeah, I'd agree with that. They're the best in the business right now.
I'm very tempted to put Hawkinson at the top of my list, but I'm not going to. It's Kelsey, it's Waller, it's Hawk, and it's Kittle for me. Hawkinson is just sickly talented at this point. So,
yeah, I'm good with that. The only thing I would say is Kittle is still pretty young, and I think he's going to have a longer career, even though injuries, he's been nicked up. But I think he's going to have a longer career out of everyone we just talked about, with the exception of Hawkinson.
I'm not going to fight you on that either. I think TJ Hawkinson has had his share of injury woes in his young career as well. So,
yeah,
totally. All right. Last week we talked about the Raiders, the Bengals, the Texans, the Eagles, the Lions, and the Vikings all being tied for first place. Now it's the Raiders, 2-0, leading their division, tied with the Denver Broncos. Is this team for real, Brett?
Seems like it. I mean, they did it without Josh Jacobs this week. They've done it with, a defense that looked on paper to be meh. I mean, the tough thing is that they've not faced their division yet. And that's going to be the buzzsaw for them because that's a good division. I mean, they're not going to – they beat Kansas City last year, but Kansas City's better this year. The Chargers better this year. I mean, all these teams in their division,
Denver's probably better too.
Denver. Yeah, Denver's better this year too. So it's going to be a tough slate. I can't imagine them staying there forever, but they're looking good, and it's a fun division to watch, which is always good. And there's plenty of fantasy production there right now. I mean, we're seeing the emergence of Ruggs, and obviously Waller's still the man, and and you get some Bryan Edwards love going there. I mean,
totally,
it's a fun offense. Leone, what do you think about him?
I think last week we both picked the Raiders to stay undefeated longest, Sully, I think, if I recall correctly.
I just knew it wasn't going to be Minnesota. That's all I remember.
I mean, I think they're for real, personally. I'm in the East Bay, so there's a lot of Raider fans. There's always Raider talk where I live, even though they moved to Vegas. It's like this is a huge Raider community out here in the East Bay area.
Totally. Makes sense.
So I'm very in tune with the Raiders. I think they are for real. I don't think they're going to win the division. I think they'll be a wild card team. I think the AFC is very top heavy. So by for real, do I think they're going to win the Super Bowl? No, but I think they're almost a for sure wild card team. And once you get to the dance, anything can happen. But yeah, I think they're for real. I think they're going to make the playoffs this year. It's been a while. I'm happy to see that happen.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. AFC is really tough. You had 10-win teams last year. I think Miami was a 10-win team and missed the playoffs last year. So they definitely need things to fall in place. But Derek Carr leads the NFL in passing right now. He looks reborn. They're doing a lot of good things, and they're playing some good defense. So
although
I don't know if they're
hurt already, so we'll see.
Yeah, I think he's going to be okay if you can believe John Gruden, which I'm not sure you can. But they play Miami at home this week, so I think they're 3-0 after this week. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, Tua's not playing. I mean, that's an easy dub for them. And even if Tua's playing,
that wraps it up for me. Over to you, sir.
All right. So tonight we want to talk about some of the trends we're seeing through the first couple weeks of the season. This is more of a very fluid conversation. We've got kind of 5 main topics we want to touch on, and then we'll get to all your questions because I see you guys throwing tons of them in the chat. And
a lot of good questions out there. Yeah.
We will get to them. There are a ton of good questions out there.
Yeah.
First, we want to talk about, and it's kind of a twofold. So part 1 and part 2 is all injury related. So quarterback injuries, we're seeing a ton of them. Running back injuries, we're seeing a ton of them. This is a weird trend to start the season. And I think this may be the most we've seen of fantasy relevant players in the last few years, at least through the first 2 weeks. Anthony, what's your take on all these injuries? Do you think this is a lack of preseason for guys getting banged up? What's your take on all these injuries, and what have you been trying to do to fight through and deal with these injuries in your leagues?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's any rhyme or reason for it. It is unfortunate, and especially in leagues where I have 5 bench spots, 6 bench spots, like it's really tough. Redraft wise. Dynasty, you make do. It's pretty easy to find someone to sub in. But even still, man, I mean, you're when you have to start KJ Osborne, I mean, it's not usually looking pretty for you. So it's just one of those things. I mean, if everyone just needs to evaluate their roster, find out where you have some depth issues. Now's the time to make a trade before your league mates know you have a real issue. So try to fill up some holes, look ahead in the future. And, everyone has the same problems across the league. So it's just one of those things you just have to try to plan your best for and move forward. What do you think, Sully?
I think the running back one is obviously that much harder. We haven't even touched on wide receiver. There's been a ton of injuries in wide receiver as well. I don't know. I think maybe the human body's only supposed to get so big and be able to go so fast and be able to be so strong. I think guys are just literally blowing themselves out of their own bodies. I know all these ruptured Achilles, there's a lot of talk is that you can't strengthen that tendon, but if you strengthen every muscle around it and you make yourself that much stronger, it's why these things are popping. So I don't know if it's the same for ACLs. The last thing I am is a sports medicine professional, but it just seems to me that as these guys get in better conditioning and better shape, there's more and more injuries. Like we had a boatload of injuries and we hadn't even started playing football yet this year, right? We lost Cam Akers really early. We lost J.K. Dobbins. We lost, remember, Gus Edwards. And now we're losing quarterbacks. A couple of years ago, we went through this with quarterback. And honestly, there's not enough depth for 32 starting quarterbacks in the NFL right now, let alone getting into the 40s if we keep trending this way. So it's a trend, sure. What do you do about it? I don't know. You just try to hang on and be as deep as you can. And maybe you're making trades you're taking on some injured guys, dynasty-wise, absorb some injury and get a little bit of, cake on top to help you rebuild a little bit. And if you're all in and you've lost one of those guys, do the opposite, right? Throw your first rounder and something at somebody to get a viable starting running back that can get you to the championship.
Yeah, this is the tough conversation in Dynasty because, if you had that guy, is your team a contender? Or if you lost a couple of guys, is your team a contender? Do you go chasing with picks to get guys to backfill? You can't play a Dynasty the same way you play a redraft. So, I have a couple of leagues where I've lost guys that were important to me. And my immediate thought was, okay, should I just begin the rebuild and just let these guys go and start trying to move in a different direction? Or should I try to waste my draft capital to go get a guy to backfill? I mean, it makes it a very difficult conversation to have where's your roster at? If those guys were that important, the Akers and Dobbins of the world, running back windows are small anyway, probably need to go spend a pick, go get a running back, be good. If it's one of these quarterbacks or a wide receiver, I mean, that's a different conversation. So, it's a tough trend, and it's a trend that we always have to deal with. Every year there's injuries. It feels like there's a lot more this year than most, but there isn't. I mean, there's just a lot of injuries at a small time.
It seems like we say that every year, though, doesn't it? It's just like, holy cow, the injuries this year are terrible. And then next year it's like, whoa, I've never seen it like this. And it'll be the same thing next year. So,
every year.
Sucks.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's tough, but that's why we do Dynasty. It's not a 1 year. You just got to keep going. All right. So after 2 weeks in the season, scoring is up by 4.25 points per game over 2020 at this point. What makes you guys think that the scoring is? What makes you think that scoring is up this high through the first 2 weeks? I'll start with you, Mr. Leone. I think I saw in a chat earlier you have the answer to this question.
I think
he solved the riddle. He solved the riddle.
I think so. I look at my pencil. I was going down with the numbers here. All right.
Wow.
In 2020, through weeks 1 and 2, there was 379 accepted penalties. This year, 435. So there's way more penalties starting off this season, and the stupid taunting rule. Mm-hmm. What? Even Tom Brady tweeted that he agrees that this is the stupidest rule. And apparently it's okay to cartwheel into the end zone via Lamar Jackson, but you can't, spin a football. We've seen, I think, 10 or 11 of these taunting penalties already. And I just think that is
Keeping
probably
drives alive.
I mean, especially with just 2 weeks into the season, I hope they reel back the taunting rule, and I hope they let these guys play a little bit more. But I have a feeling that it's these more penalties we're seeing this year compared to last year. That's my analysis. Maybe it's just a coincidence, but especially the taunting rule. I just think the taunting rule is just a big issue.
Yeah, I mean, penalties kill or keep drives alive all the time, so that makes a lot of sense.
I like it. And last year there was a really low amount of holding calls in like the first quarter of the season, and scoring was way up last year. And there was a lot you could kind of look to that. It didn't have a preseason. Defenses weren't ready to play. There was no crowd noise. Quarterbacks could literally look down the line of scrimmage and tell their wide receiver, yada, 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 and they would hear them, right? So there's none of that. So this year I expected scoring to be down. I expected defenses to play better, and I thought the crowd noise would have an impact. And yeah, it's 2 weeks, and maybe it will. And maybe it's schedule related. Like we've had some pretty Sunday night, for example, right? The opening Thursday night, we've had some really nice, love it for fantasy, barn burner, high-scoring games. We're going to get the 10-6s and stuff in there eventually as well, which kind of sucks.
Right. We're going to get the Carolina Houstons of the world.
I think Carolina's going to be okay. They might shut them out, but they're going to thump them.
I'm sure they will. But this would be the typical trap type situation where we've had 2 really good Thursday night games, and then all of a sudden we get a stinker. You know, that would be it. But Carolina's looked, I mean, really good so far. I mean, you know, they had an easier week 1, which we weren't sure about with the Jets, and then last week was a good one as well. You know, against a better team or potentially better team. All right, so number 4, and this one's a little bit more vague, but we've seen some interesting performances. So expect the unexpected so far through 2 weeks. You know, we've seen guys that we expected to just blow the roof off, like New England tight ends, George Kittle, you know. But then on the opposite side, we've seen guys that have just absolutely blown up. Tyler Lockett's, you know, averaging like, 30, 40 points a week because he's just having, extremely deep touchdowns. Saquon not really being as effective. So people are starting him and he's not getting them a lot of points, but they're easing him back from injury. Brandon Cooks being a top 10 wide receiver right now through a couple of weeks with a Houston team that everyone expected was, just the worst thing ever. I mean, it's expect the unexpected because so far through 2 weeks, anything's been possible. I mean, we've seen, big tight end performances from Max Williams, who hadn't had a big tight end performance, I think, in the NFL, in
his life. Yeah.
So I don't know what to make of it, though. So this is a trend we've seen through 2 weeks that anything's possible, but what do we do with it? I've had people messaging me like, hey, should I go and get Max Williams? And I'm like, I can't in my right mind tell you to go get Max Williams because this may have been the first time he's ever had a performance like that. So Anthony, what do you do with the unexpectedness of these first couple weeks where anything's been possible and anybody's scoring and then big names are getting shut down? You're George Kittle on your 49ers. So, what's really screwing me up this year is DK Metcalf. I have Metcalf in a lot of places, including our guillotine league. Sully, he's killing me, man. Like literally killing me.
He almost did.
He was that close. It's every year people come out of nowhere the first couple of weeks, but most of the time it's kind of fluky. And we've already seen some examples of that. Christian Kirk comes to mind, so just, early on in the year when you're evaluating your team, understand who you drafted and why you drafted them. Trey Sermon is an example. Look, I'm not dropping Trey Sermon anywhere. I didn't draft him for week 1 or week 2. I drafted him for midway through the season and on, just like we saw with Cam Akers last year. So if you're not going to be patient enough to keep Trey Sermon or Trey Lance or Justin Fields or any of these guys on your roster, then don't draft them. I think I talked about that last week. The unexpected will happen. What you think is impossible is possible. It will happen. But you still have to, have like a general understanding and expect some of these things to kind of happen. Obviously, you're going to react. Just don't, overreact too much. If for example, I have a roster with Phillip Lindsay, and he's going to be cut on my redraft league. Like, I'm just not going to keep him. I thought, hey, maybe he'll, get the lead back. Even if he did, it's not valuable enough. I've noticed it's just not worth it. So he's a guy I'll drop for, Rondale Moore, maybe Slayton, someone like that. But I mean, I'm not going to overreact and drop guys that I valued during my draft process, because ultimately a lot of things still have to play out, and the pieces are going to fall where they fall. Sully?
Sully's doing a little homework.
No, and I'll throw something in while you're doing homework. I agree. We tend to say don't overreact. It's only been 2 weeks. I have a league where I'm 1-1, and I felt like I had a really solid team, but the tight end position is killing me. I've got Evan Ingram and I've got both of Dallas's tight ends, and each week I played the one that didn't score very much, and I'm like, all right. So I started having conversations with other owners about trying to acquire. Like, there's a guy who's got Logan Thomas available. I'm like, you know what? I'll give you both Dallas's tight ends and what to get them, because you obviously need a backup tight end. So you have that whatever to pick from. I don't know what to do with this roster. I don't want to overpay, because one of these Dallas tight ends will be valuable at some point to play. It just hasn't happened through 2 weeks. So I'm trying not to overreact, because tight end is the one position that it lost me week 1 because I got outplayed by tight end. And then in week 2, I won because I just dominated with all the other positions. So that's been my struggle with this unexpected situations that we've had through the first few weeks. Sorry, Mr. Sullivan, go ahead.
No problem. Should have got Kyle Pitts, top 10 tight end.
He was drafted well before I was going to take him.
Who would have ever seen that coming? Oh, wait.
Yeah, I thought you were in the league. That's how high he got drafted.
I actually have almost no shares because I wasn't paying the price. Redraft, there was zero chance. Rookie drafts, it was easy for me. If I had first pick, I took him. But I think there's a ton of this all the time. Kevin Ogletree a couple of years ago for Dallas had like a 38-point week 1, and we all got excited, and I don't even know if he had 38 fantasy points the rest of his career. So it's tough. And I think you just have to, whatever your process was preseason in your drafts, it's still got to be your process today. You got to trust it.
Right.
And I understand that we've already talked about the trends of injuries. Those can have a dramatic impact on your team. That's got nothing to do with your process. That's just the luck factor of fantasy football. Scott Fishbowl, I drafted Cam Akers. I drafted J.K. Dobbins. I drafted Saquon Barkley. I drafted Alvin Kamara. I was laughing. I had all these stud running backs, and now I'm getting booted by everybody in that league on a weekly basis. Is what it is. So I just think you ride it out, right? Like, I think Saquon will be fine. I think, like Derrick Henry has more catches on the season than Alvin Kamara. That's not going to last, right? Like, there's weird things that are going on. Like, we talked about KJ Osborne. He's a top 20 wide receiver. Like, that's not right. Darrell Henderson's a top 8 running back. Like, things will course correct here and come back more to the mean. But yeah, just ride it out. It is only 2 weeks. Like, if we had a weird week 7 and 8, we wouldn't fixate it on it like this, because week 1 and 2 is all we have to look at. Right. So I just think you got to just trust your process, and hopefully it all works itself out in the end. And typically, more often than not, the fantasy community's never been smarter than it is today. You've done well with your team. Just let the paint dry.
I agree.
All right, there you go. So the final trend that we have is the backup running backs, and in some cases, backup running backs outperforming the lead back. Thinking of Tony Pollard in Dallas right now. I mean, he's done extremely well, where Zeke's been a little more pedestrian.
Yeah.
The San Francisco situation where Elijah Mitchell has clearly been the best back for them so far this year. Jamal Williams on par with DeAndre Swift, or obviously Tyson Williams in Baltimore because everybody's hurt. What do you guys, and even we can throw in James White. I mean, James White looks like he's finally back with an offense that's pushing him the ball in space in the passing game. What do you guys make of these backup running backs really taking a higher fantasy value type role in their offenses? And is this something that sticks around for the long term, Anthony, or is this just a few week thing and it's just going to go back to normal after a few weeks?
No, I mean, I think it's kind of part of the game. I used to work in an industry where you would have people kind of cherry pick easy jobs, and the people that got the like the second try and the cherry picking, always had like an advantage, because the first guy, he's seeing, the heavy boxes, just like the starting running back. They're getting all these tough carries in these tough situations. I mean, when you have to get 3rd and 1, you're going to give it to your stud running back, and he's going to get a 1-yard carry first down, and it doesn't look good on the stat page, right? But he got the first down. And then when you rotate in, let's say Tony Pollard, 3rd and 17, he gets 10 yards. Well, he still doesn't get a first down, but it looks a hell of a lot better on the stat page. So I think there's a lot of that going on where, the second back gets put into better situations. And as a result, their stat page looks a lot better than it really is. So I wouldn't overvalue Tony Pollard thinking, oh, his stats look better. Yeah, his stats look better, but who cares? Zeke is the lead back in this example. And he's getting those yards. Those touchdowns will come. And, the NFL teams know the season's an extra game. They're going to cycle guys in. All these teams. How many teams have one running back? I mean, I could probably count on one hand. Henry, Kamara. The list gets real short after that.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to see a lot more of these kind of multi-dimensional backfields with guys, and yeah, they're going to look good on the stat page, but I don't think that's something we need to overreact over.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think, I'll reference my Canadian heritage. When you're a backup goalie and you get to play once every couple of weeks and you play good, people are like, wow, he played great. And then the starter gets hurt and all of a sudden you're the man. Chances are you show them really quickly why you were the backup in the first place. And right. I think that's the same scenario we have with these running backs is I think I agree with everything that Anthony said. And I looked at it this year as I thought that, that 5 to 6 touchback would maybe be an 8 to 9 to 10 touchback because of the extra game when we try to pull a little workload off of our starting guys. But there's no denying Tony Pollard looks better than Ezekiel Elliott right now. But I really don't think he would be if he was named the starter tomorrow going into this weekend. I just think circumstances and situation, Tony Pollard's running, he's carefree. He didn't give a rat's ass about anything. Just give me the football. I'm going to go and have some fun. It changes a lot. Like ask Juju what happens when you become the man versus run beside the man. So I think there's a lot of that going on. I
like it. All right. So main topic's over. So we get to the fun stuff. So now we are going to get to all of your amazing questions. I'm going to start at the top. So make sure you guys stick around because we got lots of questions and we're going to get to all of them. Our best friend, Master Jin, says, Rondale Moore and Pollard, good pickups on the waiver wire. Just wondering what you thought. And send it already because why not? So he's already going after these two. Are they guys that you are jumping all over if they're on your waiver wire, Mr. Leone?
Yeah, I mean, it really comes down to who you have to drop. And I hate giving it depends because I can give it depends for any answer.
As long as you don't give depends.
But in this instance, it kind of just depends on who you're dropping. So like I said a little bit earlier, Phillip Lindsay, kind of like back of the end roster guys who I thought would show more at this point. Yeah, that's an easy drop for Pollard, or if I need some wide receiver help, maybe Rondale Moore. So yeah, I mean, I would probably in most instances look to pick up these guys if I have the roster space, but sometimes that isn't affordable.
Go get them. The vast majority of leagues that I play in, these guys are going to be welcomed onto my roster. So I think if they're available in your leagues, take a shot.
Well, it's interesting because he's, Rondale's leading the team in targets right now. Like that's crazy to think about that he's got more targets than DeAndre Hopkins or, Christian Kirk or Max Williams or any of these guys. So
he has less snaps though. That's what's really weird too.
It is.
He's not even on the field.
Making the most of his time.
Yeah.
So I'm an Arizona Cardinals expert now because I watched them play once this past Sunday. And I can tell you this is that he doesn't play a ton of snaps, but every time he's on the field, they're drawing up a play that has him somehow involved in it. A lot of stuff tight to the line of scrimmage. He's shifty. And hey, the Vikings gave him a 75-yard touchdown. But every time he's on the field, look for him to get the football because I think that's what Kyler's mindset is. So it doesn't surprise me that he leads them in targets, even if he plays 30% less snaps than A.J. Green or DeAndre Hopkins or Max Williams. right? I just think that he's there for a reason, and I could see that if he stays healthy. That's my biggest concern for him because he's like knee high to a grasshopper. But man, if he stays healthy
throughout college, I mean, he was hurt for most of it.
Yeah, so if he stays healthy, I think he's legit. So I would absolutely take the flyer on him off my waiver wire.
Yeah, if you have room, my concern for you is if you're going after these guys to be starters on your team, I don't know that I trust that endeavor. Like, these are really nice depth pieces because they're involved in their offense in a good way. And so it's good to go after Qui-Gon. I just don't like, if you're targeting them as starters, you may want to look to make some trades to help bolster your roster more than, just going after these guys.
Yeah, I mean, Ivan asked a similar question. I don't want to have him skip all the way up, but Ivan asked, would you drop A.J. Dillon for Rondale Moore? And for me, that's an easy yes. I mean, I wouldn't really have been rostering A.J. Dillon, even if I had Aaron Jones anyway.
Would you drop Laviska Shenault for Rondale Moore?
No, I wouldn't.
I think I would. And I never thought I'd say that before.
Visca's got the shoulder injury, but he should be available this weekend. But that offense right now looks
poopy.
Like it's struggling. I mean,
poopy.
Urban's learning that the NFL is different than college for sure. So if you're in a season-long thing, I would definitely consider it because
it's a close call, though. I mean, I like
you're not getting a lot of return right now.
On I stole it from earlier today. I saw it somewhere. It was a good question. I thought I'd bring it back.
All right. Brady over on YouTube says, traded away Latavius Murray and A.J. Brown for Najee Harris and T. Higgins. Thoughts? I like it if you needed running back help because T is he's a nice weekly startable asset. But if you are weak at wide receiver and it's A.J. Brown it was him and then you're kind of weak, that might be tough. I mean, that's, Najee Harris looked good week 2. That looks like they're finally getting him worked into things, but
you can't run though. It's all in the passing game.
It is. That offensive line is not making it work.
This is a tough one. This is tough.
Yeah, I'd rather have Najee Harris well over Latavius Murray, and T. Higgins and A.J. Brown are close enough for me where that's the side I'd lean on.
I think you're right. The player I want out of this is A.J. Brown. That's the one that I want out of this transaction.
Yeah.
But the gap between Latavius and Najee is too big for me compared to the gap between Brown and Higgins. Even though I think A.J. is going to catapult back up to where we're used to seeing him, I think you're right, Anthony. I think it's the Najee.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could take Najee Harris and T. Higgins. And then you could probably trade Najee Harris for like DK Metcalf and kind of make up a lot of that room, even if you didn't need the running back. So, I mean, just from a straight
if you had rostered
standpoint,
Latavius, then you probably needed the running back.
I would think that's a safe assumption.
Yeah.
So in a redraft situation, Brady, we all agree you got the good end of the deal with Najee and T. Higgins.
Yeah.
Our boy Anthony on YouTube. Which tight ends are good streamers for week 3? I've been rolling with O.J. Howard. Then tried out Ebron. Komet, Jarwin, and Knox are on the waiver wire. Buffalo and the tight end I'm not touching. That has just not been a very good tight end room. It should be Komet. In my mind, Komet should be the play here. It'll be interesting to see how Fields and Komet sync. They look good in the preseason together. Jarwin feels the safest, but they've been so all over the place with who they give the ball to at tight end. It's hard for me. So I would go Komet. Sully, what are you doing?
I'm going Dan Arnold, and I'm going to throw him up against Houston. And he seemed to have a little bit of chemistry with Darnold this past Sunday. Take a shot. I like Cole Komet. I had him as a start last week, and he disappointed. But also one little thing about streaming tight ends is Matt Brown writes an article for us on a weekly basis that I believe went live on our website today. So he's got 3 you can stream this week as well. Check it out.
Mr. Leone.
For me, it's easily Komet. You can take a Sully flyer on Dan Arnold if you want. I would go with Komet.
Yeah. Arnold's an interesting one because he had a little run with Arizona.
Yeah, he is.
And Darnold likes to target the tight end. I mean, he did it in New York. It's just the tight ends kept getting hurt every time he threw him the ball. So
Komet's got a nasty matchup against the Browns this week too. Those linebackers are mean. So who's the best tight end on this list? Cole Komet. Who's the one I want to play this week? I don't know.
Right. Yeah. I like that. I like the idea of Dan Arnold. He's one in that league where I'm struggling with the Evan Ingram and both Dallas tight ends. He's available on the waiver wire, and I'm like, I might just spend $40-50, throw them on the back end of the roster because we have super huge fab budgets and I'm not using any of it so far. So
spend it.
I've considered it, but we'll see. All right. So Aiden said over on YouTube wants to know, did I win this trade? I'm assuming Sterling Shepard, Amari Cooper, and Jonnu for Kittle and Justin Jefferson. I love Amari, but the other two pieces of the deal, I'm they're right now, Shepard's popping off. So now's the time if you want to try to trade him because he's been playing real well. I think so. I like Kittle and Jefferson a lot more long-term. Amari was the only piece of the side that you traded away, Aiden, that I'm like, yeah, I love Amari. He's a high-end wide receiver one. Well, Justin's not far away from that. And Kittle is better than Jonnu and Shepard. So I think so. What do you think, Anthony?
I like the Kittle and Jefferson side, whether it's dynasty or redraft. I think that, Kittle has a slow start to the year, but it's only been a couple weeks. I think he's going to kind of, find his legs and be just fine for the rest of the season. Jefferson, I guess, too, he's had some okay weeks, I guess, but I still think that he is by far the better player here. And so for me, it's pretty easily Kittle and Jefferson. Sully, what do you think?
Justin Jefferson's the third highest scoring wide receiver on the Minnesota Vikings currently, and I still want him and Kittle over those other three. So I agree with you, gentlemen.
There you go. All right, our boy Matt wants to know Landry and a second or Cortland Sutton. Very easily Cortland Sutton for me, but I am a Cortland Sutton truther, and he paid off this week very nicely. So,
I love Jarvis Landry like he's a brother. It's easily Cortland Sutton.
Anthony.
Easily.
Oh, I was like, what? He's holding for suspense. All right, next one. Fantasy Football Stats Guy wants to know, would you trade Thielen and Mitchell for Chubb? Absolutely. I would.
No, I think my videos.
Oh, yeah. It looks like you might be freezing up a little bit. Mr. Sullivan.
I lag.
Is everybody lagging? I think Mr. Sullivan's messing with me too. All right, Anthony, you go ahead while Mr. Sullivan's video catches back up. Would you trade Thielen and Mitchell for Chubb?
I think we're all kind of having some lagging issues here. It looks like I'm okay now.
You're good.
Would you trade Thielen and Mitchell for Chubb? I'd rather have Chubb. Yeah. I mean, I don't really trust Mitchell long term, and Chubb is legit. So yeah, I would want the Chubb side of that side.
Okay. All right. So over on Facebook, probably missed it, but what's going on in the San Francisco backfield? We've got our resident Mr. San Franciscan here. What is going on there?
Yeah, it's a good segue from that last question. I don't believe in Mitchell long term. I think he's good, but we already see some health concerns here. I mean, the whole backfield's just screwed up. I mean, there's not really too much positive, you can really say there. But San Francisco always mixes their backs. They always ride the hot hand. So even if Elijah Mitchell is the lead guy rest of season, I don't know exactly how predictable that's going to be on a fantasy week-by-week basis anyway. So personally, I think Sermon has more upside. I think Sermon has the ability to be the guy and be really good, better than Elijah Mitchell midway through the end of the season. So personally, I would rather have Sermon. If you need a starter right now, Mitchell is in the short term. As long as he's healthy, he's going to be the best back to own for the next few weeks. But ultimately, I still have faith in Trey Sermon. They traded up to get him in the third round. Yeah, he hasn't had a good offseason. He got some injuries. But I think once he gets a handle on the offense and once he's fully healthy, I think this is going to be his backfield.
I like it. All right, so Joseph wants to know, I have Herbert as my starter. Should I pick up Kirk Cousins as his backup, obviously? I'm thinking it might benefit me having Justin Jefferson. I would have to probably drop Kenneth Gainwell or Terrace Marshall Jr. Your thoughts? Welcome back, Mr. Sullivan. I'll let you take this one. What do you think about this?
Format's really important, right? Like, I'm not going to drop any of these guys in a 1 QB league. If it's a super flex league, I can't imagine that he's on waivers. So I'm going to guess that it's a 1 QB league. If I'm going to drop anybody here, I'm going to drop Marshall, but I'm probably going to regret it later on in the year.
I don't,
when's the Chargers bye? When's the Chargers bye week? I don't think in redraft Marshall's that hard to drop right now.
Yeah, I don't know that he gets you a ton of consistent production this season because they have plenty of good, talented wide receivers ahead of him. All right, so Chargers bye week is an early one, week 7.
So maybe I would. I don't normally carry 2 quarterbacks in redraft, but maybe I would. But I don't have any problem dropping Marshall for him. I'd hold on to Kenneth Gainwell, though. I think there's a piece of the offense for him. Anthony, you're shaking your head. You don't agree?
Yeah, no. There's no way I would roster a second quarterback in a 1 QB league. If you take Herbert in the 6th, 7th round, you do that so you don't have to waste a roster spot on a bench quarterback. Who's on the waiver wire right now other than Kirk Cousins? I can probably guess if Kirk Cousins is on the waiver wire, so is Matt Ryan, so is Heineke, so is Tua. So
you don't want any one of those. You don't want any of those quarterbacks over Kirk Cousins, though, do you?
No, that's not the question. The question is, who am I going to start over Herbert? I'm never going to start any of those guys over Herbert anyway. So why would I waste a bench spot?
Okay, that's fair.
Well, so yeah,
when his bye week,
hit the
when his bye week comes up, then I'll grab. It might even be Kirk Cousins by that point, and if it is Kirk Cousins, cool. You didn't waste a bench spot for 5 weeks. I mean, that's just the way I would roll with it. Some people are a little bit. Yeah, some people are a little bit more conservative, and that's fine too. I'm not, there's a lot of different ways to win fantasy football, but personally, I value those bench spots like a diamond ring, each one of them. And if you're not feeling Marshall, don't just waste it on a backup quarterback, in my opinion. Waste it on Rondale Moore last week. Waste it on, Trey Sermon. Right. I mean, I'd rather roster Trey Sermon than a backup quarterback because, by week 5 or 6, he may be the guy. So that's all.
Kerryon Johnson might be the guy in San Francisco if we keep going this route.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Welcome, Caleb. Thank you for joining the channel. Make sure you guys drop likes, comments, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. I have Calvin Ridley and Goddard, and I'm thinking of flipping them for Woods and Kittle. I don't think I'm doing that. I would want to keep Ridley and Goddard. As much as I like Kittle, Woods, I don't. That's a big value difference in my mind. I would rather keep the 2 you've got. Anthony, looks like you're agreeing with me. Mr.
I agree
Sullivan,
with you. Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
I don't know. I'm really, really concerned about Matt Ryan in Atlanta. Like, I know that Ridley bounced back and had a good second half in week 2, but man, Ridley looks terrible like Roethlisberger does. Robert Woods is clearly the second option in that offense behind Cooper Kupp, though, and I'm so infatuated with Cooper Kupp this year. I'm probably going to stay with Ridley and Goddard because I think the best of Goddard is still to come as well. But that one's tough. That one's close.
I would not trade Goddard until after this week. If Zach Ertz is out this week, Goddard can have a huge game, and that would be the best time to trade Goddard.
Good point.
Bingo. All right, so Nahom says Devontae Adams and Eckler or Hopkins and Zeke.
Jesus.
Monster trades here.
Yeah,
that one's Adams and Eckler for me. Sort of, kind of easily.
Yeah, I'd rather have Eckler. At this point, and so that's
in a redraft in a season long situation. Give me Adams and Eckler because it looks like Adams and Rodgers are back on the page again, and they're rocking and rolling. And Eckler was already rocking and rolling. Zeke's been struggling. I mean, just the easiest way to put it is they're just having a tough time getting him what he needs. And Hopkins has done fine. I mean, he's been a nice wide receiver 1, but give me
he always is.
Yeah, always is.
Plus, if you have Eckler and he wins in your fantasy league, you can tweet him, and you might get a signed jersey from him.
It's true. You got to start him. You got to start him, but I can't imagine you're not starting him if you have him. So
you got to keep Eckler for that jersey opportunity.
Very true.
I haven't got
any. All right, our boy Jaws says single QB. So this is a 1 QB league. Eason or Mills, the better pickup. Long term, more long-term, more of the concern. This team is not likely to compete without Watson. Rosen and Brissett out there too. Trubisky and Newton.
Oh, you poor guy.
Minshew, Ellinger, and I'll stop now. I love you, Jaws. You're so good.
Jaws is awesome.
Jaws is the best.
I'll stop now.
I think I don't even know. Go ahead, Brad. I don't know.
I mean, I really right now Mills is the only one with a chance of starting. Eason might if those two bad ankles aren't working for Wentz. Minshew if Hurts gets hurt or is ineffective at some point. I mean, those are kind of the only three that are even in consideration. But with this being a single quarterback, I would just leave them all for now. I would just kind of wait and see how the chips fall because you don't need any of these guys until bye weeks show up.
Unless he needs a starter right now.
Yeah, he might need a starter right now.
If you need a starter and you're looking at any of these guys, I would just hit the rebuild button. And if there's anything over 27, 26, 27, sell it and start moving on. I mean,
I think the only one with a really clear path, and that path could be very short, is Davis Mills. So yes, I would target Mills, but that could come off the rails in a hurry, or it could be Gosson. There's a pretty good track record of following Tyrod Taylor after he's injured in this league. So
yeah, I was going to say we saw last year. If you follow Tyrod Taylor, what can happen, and so maybe Mills is the next Herbert. I doubt it. We'll see.
At least the Texans
you
didn't
heard it here.
stab him.
Leone said Mills is the new Herbert.
Yeah, so Mills is my vote, but temper your expectations, and then after you do that, temper them again. That's
if you have to go after quarterback, Mills would be the only one with a shot of any significant playing time. I mean, Eason is the next guy there behind it if you can't get Mills because Wentz is hurt and he's not going to get any less hurt as the season goes on. Those ankles aren't getting any better.
Yeah,
that guy's a mess.
Yeah.
Poor guy. All right, so MB over on YouTube.
Ankles.
Oh, I know. I feel like they're just going to put him on crutches at some point here soon. He's just going to be out there just.
I mean, I don't think you can use crutches with two sprained ankles. You have to have like a wheelchair or maybe like a.
You need one of those dogs, those chairs for your dog that the legs don't work, where you put your back legs in it and you just run.
A wheelbarrow. Yeah.
All right. So MB says, do you think I should use a waiver claim to get Alexander Madison or keep it for future uses?
I'd hang on to it.
Yeah, I wouldn't jump on Madison. I would jump on somebody who's probably going to get you more consistent value throughout the season.
I think Dalvin's going to play. I think Dalvin's going to play this week. I'm pretty confident of that. So
there you go.
Yeah, let someone else use the waiver pickup on Madison, and then they'll drop him in 2 weeks anyway. Then if you want to scoop him up at that point, that's when you can do it.
All right. So I think we all agree yes here. Ivan asks, should I drop AJ for Rondale Moore?
100%.
Okay. Crabbed. Welcome. Thoughts on Javonte Williams going forward? I just traded Marvin Jones and Drake for him. I already have 4 solid receivers over Jones. Well, Javonte, I mean, if this is a season-long situation, I mean, he's going to keep getting more usage in this offense. If that's a dynasty trade, then you won out big time because he's a very talented young running back and going to be their running back after this year. Clearly, Gordon is going to be done soon because of that contract. What do you think, Mr. Sullivan?
I like the trade. I think you gave up a little bit too much, but there's sometimes when you do have to give up a little bit too much to get the guy that you want. And if you're rich in the receiver room and you want to add a little bit extra to get that guy, good for you. I like Javonte. I think he's going to continue to get better. Anthony referenced it with Sermon earlier, the Cam Akers reference of last year. I think that's a good one for Javonte as well, as we'll see him kind of catapult up the carries and results as we go into the season.
Yeah, that's one of those trades that looks like it's heavy, but in a few weeks from now, you're going to say, wow, look at this trade. So, yeah, I think that's a good trade.
Absolutely. All right, Ivan has a couple here. Should I trade away Claypool? And also, should I drop Gainwell for Osborne or Cordero Patterson? So we got 2 pieces to this Ivan question. Is Claypool tradable at this point? In a season-long situation, I guess it depends on what you're going to get. In a dynasty format, no. I mean, unless you're getting a really good return. I mean, both these cases, in my mind, it's what are you getting in return for Claypool?
Yeah, I was the high guy on Claypool last year and the low guy on Claypool this year. And it was mainly because when he scored a touchdown, he was a top 18 wide receiver. And when he didn't, he was a bottom, I think he was wide receiver 94 on average. So he has to score to be relevant for you, and we've seen that already this year. I don't have a problem trading him, but you got to get something good for him, to Brad's point.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to replace what you thought he was in your lineup.
Mm-hmm. Anthony?
Yeah, I agree with that. And then to segue over to the Gainwell question, I would not drop Gainwell for either of these two myself.
Man, Patterson's getting a ton of usage in that Atlanta offense. Are you sure?
He'll get hurt.
I just don't think it's sustainable. I'm not really believing it. I mean, he had a couple of touchdowns. If he didn't have a couple of touchdowns, then we're not talking about him right now. You know who else had a couple of touchdowns week one? Christian Kirk. I haven't seen his name for 55 minutes so far. So,
you know, Brad convinced me on Sunday that KJ Osborne's a thing now. The Minnesota Vikings and Mike Zimmer convinced me on Sunday that their defense stinks. Kirk Cousins is going to throw the ball a lot. KJ Osborne. Now, not sure I make this trade, but Osborne is going to be a lot more relevant than I ever would have thought.
There you go. So don't do any of it. Wait and see. Kenny says, should I trade Kamara and Logan Thomas for Kelsey and T. Higgins? My RBs are Mixon and Najee. I wouldn't do it. Kamara, I think, is worth Kelsey and T. Higgins plus by himself. I mean, really?
No.
You think? You don't think so?
No, you have Kelsey and Higgins. I want Kelsey and Higgins before I want Kamara.
Yeah, Kamara for Kelsey and Higgins. I think
you don't
fair.
Really?
I mean, Kamara is one of the top.
I think it's
running backs. Especially this is full PPR. Remember, full PPR. I know week 1 and 2 has been a little struggle, but Kamara is not going to stay down for very long.
I don't disagree. But Travis Kelsey could score as many points this season as Alvin Kamara. And then once I add T. Higgins to the mix, who could be a top 24 to 28 wide receiver, I don't know. I kind of like that side, but I don't think I'm not looking to get rid of him.
I don't think you're valuing Logan Thomas enough, and that's the guy that pushes it back to the Kamara side for me personally.
Logan Thomas is gravy in this transaction.
Yeah. So Kamara and Logan Thomas is the side I'm leaning on.
I think it's a fair trade.
I think Kamara for Kelsey and Higgins is fair.
That's what I said.
I think the Logan Thomas is what pushes
Sully,
it back.
you know it's bad when Leone and me are on the same page.
Yeah, no, I'm not giving up a tight end that finished as the wide receiver 4 and a budding superstar potential top 12 to 15 wide receiver for a top 5 running back. It just the math doesn't add up for me.
So Sully says Kelsey and Higgins side is better. Anthony and I say Kamara and Logan Thomas. Ultimately, in the end, what do you say? That's the good question. Good luck with that one. Zippy says, do you think I could start Woods and Kupp at wide receiver 1 and 2? So LA's facing Tampa. I don't think that's a smart idea.
I think you can. You absolutely can. If you're the way to beat Tampa is through the air. We've seen that for 20 games now, going back to last year and early this year. I just don't think Woods can give you the wide receiver 2 week that you need. I think you can do better elsewhere, but Cooper Kupp is a slam dunk.
Oh, easily.
Wide receiver 1 in that offense. I just don't think Woods can get you what you want. But there's worse decisions you could make. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. If you have a better option, I would not start Woods and Kupp at wide receiver 1 and 2. I would start Kupp at wide receiver 1. And then if you have a better option at 2, definitely go there. Yeah. Woods is going to get some action, but so far through 2 games, he's got 8 catches, 91 yards, and a touchdown. I mean, he's getting some targets, but he's just not getting the production. And that'll change. I mean, at some point, he's going to pop off and have a big game. I don't know if it's this week. I don't know if they're going to have that kind of a high-scoring game. I anticipate they probably will because both offenses are pretty strong.
And it's really risky, too, though. I mean, imagine if, Stafford got hurt. I mean, we saw all these quarterback injuries last week. Could you imagine losing your wide receiver 1 and 2?
You shut your dirty mouth. You shut your mouth. Don't even say that. How do you even bring that up? What is wrong with you? Get out of here.
So Rendon says, and welcome, Rendon. Glad you're here. Would you trade Deontay Johnson for Godwin? Yes, because I love Godwin.
And Deontay's hurt.
And
Johnson's hurt.
He's not.
He's going to be out 2 to 3 weeks. Last report.
No, he's not. He's just a baby. He's going to play this week. No, I would easily Godwin.
He's out 2 to 3 weeks with hurt feelings. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, he's going to play this week.
Okay.
All right. So our pirate over on YouTube wants to know Jamal or Pollard rest of season in a PPR situation. Give me Jamal, I think, because it looks like Detroit is using a heavy dose of two backs. Even though Pollard is being used significantly, Zeke's production and volume is going to go up. I mean, like they typically give him a lot more than he's been getting. So I would go with Jamal rest of season just because Detroit's offense needs him to be successful too. Sully.
Agree 100%.
Leone.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I would have loved for our friends at FYF to answer this because they were all over Pollard earlier today.
They were.
But you know what? I maybe they're just too young and they haven't seen this happen enough times, man. It's like, you have a couple of good weeks and then it's like you think he's going to be the next great thing and then all of a sudden he disappears. With Jamal Williams, I think, I drafted him everywhere over Tony Pollard for a reason. I expect him to have a pretty hefty workload throughout the season. And so for me, it's very easily Jamal Williams.
Okay.
But it is a good question. It is a good question.
There you go, Captain. Ivan wants to know, rank these bench players, Gainwell, Lindsey, A.J. Dillon. In a season-long situation, I think that's the ranking of them. Gainwell, Lindsey, A.J. Dillon. If this is Dynasty, I think it's probably A.J. Dillon, Gainwell, Lindsey. But it's close.
I think I go Gainwell, Dillon, Lindsey, regardless of format.
Ooh.
It's funny, we're all going to disagree on this one. I'm going to go with Gainwell, Dillon, Lindsey. Very confidently. I agree with Sully on that one for redraft. But for Dynasty, I'm going to go Dillon, Gainwell, Lindsey.
Oh, so you agreed with me in Dynasty and you agreed with Sully in redraft.
Yeah,
I disagree.
So I think I'm right because I agreed with both you guys for a different.
If you don't think you're right, you shouldn't have said it. So good on you.
All right. So Zippy's wants to know: did I mess up by trading Kareem Hunt and T. Higgins for Robert Woods? Yes,
A little bit.
Say so. I would think so.
Yeah, that's
okay.
Hunt is
That's
a nice, playable, flexible running back, and T. Higgins is a budding superstar, as Mr. Sullivan says. Woods is very good, but that's a tough one. If you thought that you're competing, I could see why you would try to do something like that. I don't know that I would though.
Yeah, that one I wanted.
And Anthony's got a very strong
opinion. Zippy. Come on, man. No, this is awful trade, Zippy. This is awful. Look, I'm glad you're asking now, and I'm glad you're having like this moment of reflection. I'm glad you're not afraid to talk about it. This is okay. You made a mistake. But just make sure in the future, get in our Discord. If you ask the guys, hey, should I do this trade? I am confident we would have steered you in the right direction. This is unfortunately a bad trade, in my opinion. It's not the end of the world. I'm glad you're having this moment here where we can level. But yeah, get in our Discord and we'll help you out in the future for sure.
All right. So sorry, Zippy.
I love you. I love you, Zippy. You're my brother, man.
You the man, Zippy. Landon says, someone offered me this trade. Offered him CEH and AB for Austin Eckler. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't
do that either. No, I'd rather have Austin Eckler.
Yeah, it's really hard. There's not a lot to go on here. In a vacuum, I'll keep Eckler as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd rather have Eckler.
All right. James wants to know thoughts on Antonio Gibson the rest of the season. I mean, he's not going to be as rough as he's been, but he's not going to be what everyone thought he was going to be. McKissick's still involved in this offense. Gibson's going to get more involved at points. I mean, I wasn't always as high on him as a lot of folks in the community, though. So
I was pretty high. I was real high on him. I think I had him inside my top 12. I'm a little concerned, but what I do take as comfort for me is that he's on the field all the time, except the 2-minute drill, and then he comes off the field and McKissick goes bonkers in the 2-minute drill. So if they're in a game script that doesn't really warrant a 2-minute drill, I think that Gibson will be just fine, and he still has a lot of games against his division, and that's where he really excelled last year, especially the 2 games against the Dallas Cowboys. So I think he's still going to be fine. But to Brad's point, I don't think he's going to be where I had him or others had him entering the season.
I agree with Sully.
Okay. There you go, James. Crabbed wants to know, trade Robert Woods for Deontay Johnson. Yes, I would do that.
Dynasty yes, redraft no.
Yeah, I agree with Sully.
Yeah. Well, okay. Yes.
Because I actually think he's hurt.
Yeah. Dynasty yes, redraft no.
I'm worried about Ben too. I mean, I just traded him for a third in a Superflex league.
Yeah, that was a terrible trade. Zippy's laughing at you.
You just made the list. All right. So our boy Josh says better stash, and we know this answer already. Jared Patterson or Demetric Felton? Jared Patterson.
100%
for me.
Yeah.
What about you, Anthony?
I agree
don't know
with you
your
guys.
answer. Oh, you're Jared. Okay.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. Yeah.
Felton score this past week?
What was that?
Didn't Felton score? He's with the
Browns. Oh, did you see that play?
It was a beautiful play.
Beautiful play.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean I want to roster him.
I'm still stashing.
Yeah.
Not cool when I had Chubb at the start of the week.
All right, so Ivan wants to know, is Cordarrelle more valuable than Lindsey or Dillon? In a redraft?
No. Lindsey, yes. Dillon.
Probably. No. Well, in a redraft situation, probably, because Dillon gets very minimal usage still. In a dynasty, no. He's not more valuable than Dillon. I mean, is he more valuable than Lindsey in dynasty? I don't know. Maybe.
Barely.
Whatever you feel like.
I also think that we haven't seen Wayne Gallman get a chance there yet, and I think he'll be okay, and that'll help with the touches. Like Mike Davis is not going to be what we wanted him to be, but we've watched CP enough to know that he's okay in spurts. But I wouldn't bet on him totally.
Thanks, Caleb, for stopping by, brother. All right, so Andrus wants to know, hey guys, half-point PPR, 2 flex. Would you start Brandon Cooks and or Pittman over James Robinson, Damian Harris, Cortland Sutton, or Debo? I'm not starting anybody over Sutton or Debo. James Robinson is the one that I consider because I don't know why Urban Meyer does not like a talented running back. And I would consider starting. I would probably lean towards Pittman because he's their top option, and their matchup's better than Cooks' matchup this week. So
even with the backup quarterbacks in play?
I think so. I mean, I think so because isn't Indy facing?
I can look.
I just had Pittman's also kind of a low ADOT type guy anyway, so I don't really think he's going to be hurt too bad by the quarterback situation.
Oh yeah, they play the Titans. I think I'd start Pittman.
Yeah, so
I mean, in this instance for me, I'm starting Sutton and Debo. I mean, no question. Those are my 2 guys.
Well, he's asking, are you starting Cooks or Pittman over any of those 4? So I would start Pittman over James Robinson. And that's really the one I think.
Who's the Harris are we talking about?
I'm assuming it's
Damian Harris. It's got to be Damian Harris.
Yeah. So
or it could be the Saints Harris, right?
No,
Deontay? I don't think so.
I think it's
I guess he wouldn't be in the conversation.
Yeah, I think it's Damian Harris. So Pittman, I feel comfortable with Pittman, but that's it this week.
Do I have to start 3 of these? Is that what the
question is? I think it's start 4. I think it's start 4.
Because he's asking Cooks and or Pittman over any of those other 4.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm sitting Pittman and I'm sitting Harris, I think. No, I'm sitting J-Rob and Pittman. I'm starting Cooks, Harris, Sutton, and Debo if I have to start 4.
Okay.
I'm good with that.
There you go.
Just make sure Sutton and Debo are in there and you'll be fine.
Sutton and Debo will win you the game. Isn't Debo like wide receiver 1 or 2 or 3?
He's got to be up there.
Yeah,
3.
He's up
got to be up there. Yeah.
All right. So Drizzy Jake wants to know, hey guys, 2 QB league. I have Josh Allen already. Devonta and Terry is my wide receiver 1 and 2. Trade. He received a trade. Trade is I received. Okay. Yeah. He receives Diggs, Damian Harris, Baker Mayfield, Pollard, and Corey Davis for Terry and Russell Wilson. Diggs, I think, is just as good as Terry, if not better. Actually, I think Diggs is better than Terry.
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield is a real step down from Russell Wilson.
I don't think it's as big.
It's not that big.
It's not that big.
So?
I don't think it's that big.
It's significant, but it's not Tony Pollard, Corey Davis big.
Right.
Damian
and
Harris.
With age on his side too, it's really not that big. I give him this argument all the time. Baker is not that far from Russell Wilson. If you really stop and think about it, he's really not.
I don't know what the roster looks like or the format or anything else, but I think you could take that Diggs package and start all of it and be better off than starting Terry and Russ, as much as I love those 2.
There you go, Drizzy. David says, full PPR. Should I start Calvin Ridley, Tyler Boyd, Devonta Smith, and KJ Osborne?
Sure.
Should I start Mike Davis, James Robinson? Oh, he goes on, but it's not. It's
there's an or.
others.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not. There's not ors. So it's the or is for the running backs. I was going through the comments a little bit further.
I'd start all those receivers, but I'd try to get away from Osborne if you can.
Yeah, if you've got a better option. David, should I start Mike Davis, James Robinson, or Tyson Williams as RB2? I would go Tyson Williams this week against Detroit because that should be a sweet matchup for him. He really should get a lot of good rushing there. Anthony, do you disagree with any of what we're said?
I would start Tyson Williams.
Okay, so you agree. Should I start Devonta Smith in my flex going against the Cowboys, or James Robinson or Tyson over Devonta Smith? So Devonta Smith or Robinson or Tyson. So Devonta's got the Cowboys. Tyson's got Detroit. I would probably lean towards Tyson in this situation. Devonta Smith should have a decent game, but Tyson should have a very good game.
Ceiling play is Smith and the floor play is Williams.
For sure. All right, so James wants to know, keep Sermon and Mitchell? Should I try to trade? He's going on with other questions. All right, so first question, keep Sermon and Mitchell. I mean, if you've got the roster space, yes, because Mitchell's playable right now. Sermon should be later, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't give him away. No way.
Okay, should I try to trade Gibson while he still has value or wait?
I'd like to hold him personally.
Yeah, I would give it a little bit more time unless you're desperate in another area and you're stacked at running back. I mean, that's a tough position because you drafted Gibson early, most likely. This is a redraft format. You drafted him very early. And
second round.
You can't give him up on that quick. All right. Baltimore against Detroit or Carolina against Houston? I would go Carolina because they're literally the top defense in football right now against the Houston team starting probably a rookie quarterback.
Young and fast and fun to watch. Carolina all day long.
Agree.
Any IDP plays you want to put in there, Anthony?
Yeah, let's go.
That one linebacker guy.
Matt Rule. No, that's head coach.
No,
I liked Parsons. I liked Micah Parsons moving positions. I thought he played extremely well.
Man, but he dipped in tackles. That's the thing I was afraid of.
Wow,
said,
from a fantasy perspective.
Oh yeah, those tackles.
I understand.
So hard to predict. Yeah.
Anthony's never tackled anything before in his life except a veggie pizza. All right. Joseph wants to know, how much fab do you spend on Darnell Mooney? I only have $28 left. I have Pittman replacing Deontay for now. I'd like to add more depth just in case. I think you have to spend. I can't believe he's not already rostered, honestly. But I've been so high on the dude. I think you're going to have to get awfully close to all your fab, quite honestly.
I don't think all your fab gets it done. So I wish you the best with your $28. Go for it.
If you can do $0 bids, then I would do all 28. But if you cannot do $0 bids, which some leagues don't allow it,
it's a very good answer.
Don't allow it. So I would only spend about 15 if you can't do $0 bids. But otherwise, I would spend it all.
There you go.
Good answer. And by the way, every league should have $0 bids.
Yeah, of course.
Absolutely. All right. So L wants to know, do I start CEH in a half-point PPR format? My other options are Damian Harris, Elijah Mitchell, or Debo, since I can play him at the flex and move Swift up to RB2. I play Debo in this situation all day because he's a top wide receiver right now, and they're feeding that guy like crazy. I start him over all of those other options because Swift is still playing, and he's probably a better option than CEH right now.
I would start Debo. Can we start Debo?
Well, that's what I just said. You start Debo over those other three.
Oh yeah, so okay, we're on the same page. Yeah,
so we're all
you in this scenario you start Swift and Debo, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Because he's moving Swift to RB2 and starting Debo.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's our opinion.
Yeah.
All right. So Jacob wants to know, Standard League. My RB1 is Chubb, RB2 is Robinson, bench just Hunt. What trade should I make to get more depth? He's got Tannehill. His lineup is Tannehill, both running backs, Ridley, Metcalf, Hawkinson, Deontay Johnson, I'm assuming. Bench is Smith, Fields, Carr. Well, I think you just slide Hunt in as your RB2 and roll with that for now until they figure out what they're doing in Jacksonville's running game. I mean, I don't want to trade Ridley. I don't want to trade Metcalf. I don't want to trade Hawkinson. Johnson, if you can get something back with a running back and wide receiver in a Johnson package. But if he's hurt, people might not jump on him. Or, you can't trade Fields right now because he's not really long-term starter potentially. I mean, Nagy says Dalton's still the guy.
Yeah, I think you roll Hunt into your RB2 and hang tight.
Yeah,
I agree.
Both are producing. I don't trade any of those guys just yet.
And if it's super flex, I'm assuming. Otherwise,
it must be, or else I would start trading quarterbacks.
Right.
Yeah, if it's a QB, okay, so we'll say that way, Jacob. If this is super flex, keep your quarterbacks. If this is a 1 QB, take Tannehill or Carr and try to get a better option. I mean, Carr right now is on fire, so somebody might bite and get yourself a running back and go that way. All right, so Jaz might try to fly some offers on Woods. Everyone panicking. So yes, we definitely would say go.
Fun fact with Robert Woods. I can't remember how many years he's been in the league, but he's beat his ADP every single season.
Every time. All right, William Scott wants to know, if I trade Brandon Cooks, who should I try and get in return? That's a loaded question, because if that is, it really depends on your roster construction, William. If you need help at wide receiver, well, then just keep Cooks because he's their top option and they're going to keep targeting him. If you need help at a different position, well, then you're going to have to get wide receiver depth now because you're losing Cooks and that position. So
he's a tough guy to trade.
The best way to do this, William, is to look at the other teams in your leagues, particularly the ones that are 0-2, and find their weakness. If they have a wide receiver weakness, then that's who you're going to attack. You're going to take their backup tight end, like Logan Thomas. If they have Gronk, something like that, you can attack. Maybe like if they have Kareem Hunt on their bench. Find a team that needs wide receiver that isn't starting this year too well, that has a surplus and something, especially if you need it. That's going to be your best bet.
William, I would encourage you, if you haven't jumped in our Discord yet, jump in Discord, go in the redraft chat, and throw your roster up there and say, "This is my roster. I'm looking at trading Brandon Cooks. What should I do?" And we, all three of us are in the Discord chat, constantly talking to people. I would encourage you to do that. It's free. It's easy. Just download the app, jump in, and join us. I posted the link here in the YouTube comments, and we can do a little bit more deeper analysis to help you out there.
Yeah, and anyone watching here can tag me in there anytime. I'm on there all the time. Just tag me if you guys want my crazy advice. That's it.
And one more thing on Discord is we'll take care of you in there. It's the same as our Facebook group. We don't allow any shenanigans or people being disrespectful. We value each and every one of you equally, so we'll take care of you. And DMs are wide open as well.
Yeah.
So
you guys can be disrespectful to me, though. You guys can be disrespectful to me. I'm
wow.
When it comes to your food preferences, that's the only time you get disrespected. Otherwise, we're okay with your crazy takes. We like them. All right, Ivan wants to know, should I trade Claypool for Woods in a redraft? No, I wouldn't. Even though Woods has not produced strongly, and Claypool's been. I still like that offense in LA better than Pittsburgh's offense this year.
I'd rather have Woods.
I ranked Woods higher, so the answer is yes.
I'd rather have Woods. Yeah.
All right. So Chris Rice wants to know, after this week, are you guys concerned with CEH?
I'm concerned right now.
I mean, in a redraft format, yeah. I mean, it's a tough spot that they're in, and he's in. But what are you going to do with him? So who's going to buy him in a season-long format? I mean, it's a tough – you have to sit on him and hope that there's a bounce back.
I have him in a guillotine league, and I'm just hoping and praying that I can get to the next week. And actually, I'm trying to pick up somebody this week. I can't remember who it is, but certain formats you can hang in there with him, but other ones it's a little scary. So redraft, season-long.
Anthony?
Yeah, any format, I'm concerned. I mean, this offense is so good at passing the ball. We saw it this past Sunday night?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Sunday night. Yeah, it's like they triple coverage Tyreek Hill at times. They double cover him all game.
How'd that work out for you?
Oh man, I love that game plan. John Harbaugh is my man right now.
So Brad, not to take this show totally off the rails, but Anthony and I are in the Road to Heat Guillotine League together, and he is done. He's hooped. If Tyreek gets 5 points, Anthony is going home, and Anthony by 0.22 is still so.
Yeah,
crazy.
just because Tyreek Hill did nothing. And
luckily enough, Tyreek did not cost me a win this week.
But it just goes to show you, like, there are so many people that Mahomes can pass the ball to. I mean, we saw Pringle and Robinson and Kelsey and the backup tight end, and it's like, I worry about CEH really getting an opportunity because he can just throw the ball so well.
Oh, absolutely. All right, so Ivan is back with thoughts on Laviska. I'm getting concerned. This offense was going to take time to have to click anyway because it's a new head coach, Darrell Bevell, and a new offensive coordinator in there. I mean, there's a lot of moving pieces. It's got to take time. You got to sit on them. Anthony, what are you throwing deuces?
I was talking to Kevin. He's like, again, we're talking about the gig team. 0.22, baby. Laviska. I'm a little concerned. I haven't lost hope. I think we asked if we would drop Rondale Moore for him. I wouldn't. I think Sully said he would. So maybe Sully's a little bit more concerned than I am. But it's only 2 weeks into the season. I'm not overly concerned yet. So, I'm a little concerned, but I wouldn't be dropping him at this point.
My concern level, if I had a concern meter, it would be at about 4.5 out of 10. So I am concerned, but I'm not panicking. And yes, I would drop him for Rondale Moore. I don't think that that's necessarily a realistic scenario. I just think that it came up earlier today.
You brought it up.
I did bring it up. Would I do it? Yes. But do I think that's going to happen? Is that an option in the majority of leagues? Probably not. But I'm just saying that that's the type of player that I would move him for. I wouldn't drop him for KJ Osborne for an example.
Yeah, I feel that.
There you go. All right, so James wants to know, would you consider starting Tyson against Detroit over Antonio Gibson versus who they fit? Is it Buffalo this week? Who do they have?
I don't know, but I don't think the answer matters for me. I like Tyson a lot, even against Detroit, but I'm not starting him over Antonio Gibson.
There is a 0.22
facing the Buffalo Bills.
No,
there is a 0.22% chance I would ever consider starting Tyson over Gibson. So no, it's
so
Gibson all the way.
So what you just said is in the guillotine league, you're starting Tyson over Gibson.
Gibson all the way.
I have Tyson, and I'll start him.
I would start Gibson as well this week, and probably feel bad when Tyson outscores him. It's probably what's going to happen.
He could. He very
Buffalo's
much could.
Got a tough defense to go against.
But I still think this early in the season, the guy you drafted with your 14th or 15th or 16th pick, if we're talking from a redraft standpoint, versus the guy you picked up on the waiver wire, still needs to be in your starting lineup. It's too early to be dismantling. Like I said at the top, stick to the process.
So good, bad, and otherwise, I typically play the matchups. If I know that I've got a running back who's going to go off, even though he may not be the top guy, I definitely consider it. So Tyson, I don't hate the idea of someone going, hey, should I start him? But
I don't either. But it could be Latavius.
It
could be Latavius Murray, right? It could be
Lamar
Freeman. It could be frickin' Le'Veon.
It could.
So
I very rarely let a matchup be that much of a determination in my decision making. If I have a couple of guys that are really close, then I might go with the next guy. But if we're talking, 5-10 spots in rankings, there's no question for me.
So Ivan wants to know, is Max Williams, Arizona tight end, a good pickup after a blow up of a week 2? Not doing it. I can't do it yet. He's not produced with Baltimore, which was tight end heaven for the longest time and still is with Mark Andrews. He produced 1 week with Arizona. He was with Arizona last year, and we didn't see anything. So what's to say this is just an anomaly? It could very well just be a mirage to scare and mess with fantasy owners.
They don't really target the tight end in Arizona, and for some odd reason they did against Minnesota, and it's probably because Minnesota, there's holes all over the place, and you can just pick and choose and dink and dunk. So, but I can't imagine Max Williams is a thing by any means, unless he plays Minnesota a few more times.
All right, so Hector wants to know, I'm running out of patience with Laviska and Ayuk. Should I hold them or drop them for Edwards, Pittman, or Osborne? Pittman needs to be rostered. Edwards.
Not at the expense of those two.
Brian Edwards, I would probably keep Laviska and Ayuk over those three right now still. But Pittman would be the one I would consider trying to pick up.
Would you drop Laviska for Pittman, Brad?
Because there's so many injuries in Indy, and because LaVisca and that offense has been hurt and injured, I would consider it.
I think so.
I don't know that I would pull the trigger, but I don't think there's much more time before Pittman's picked up. He probably gets picked up in this league probably this week. So if you're getting him, you got to drop LaVisca for him, but then no LaVisca is going to get picked up because somebody will be willing to take a chance on him.
True.
I have Pittman and LaVisca on a lot of redraft rosters this season, and I would 100% drop LaVisca before dropping Pittman. So yes, I would drop LaVisca.
Grab Pittman if you want him, Hector. Yeah. But the rest of them I would leave out there.
Brian Edwards hold on to Ayuk though. Hold on to Ayuk.
Yeah, I'd keep him for now. Although Debo is still the man. All right, Brady says I traded away. Oh, we already talked about that. We already had that conversation, Brady.
Did we just wrap it right around or what?
No. I think it came up a second time. All right, so all right, so Andrew says yes, Damien. I'm skeptical based on this must be based on an answer to something earlier. Sorry. And then he says, yes, Damien, I'm skeptical based on the QB injuries. Could be risky, but so are the Jags. So Debo, Sutton, Damien. Oh, this was the who do I start over? So we said make sure you start, Debo, Sutton, and then I think Cooks was over James Robinson, which is why he mentioned the Jags. So that's what it was. This was answering to our question that we were answering his about whom to start. And we said Debo and Sutton are locks. Damian Harris, you should. And then you, Sully, said Cooks over James Robinson. And I had said Pittman, I believe, over James Robinson. But really, either way is better.
Yeah, and just to clarify earlier, I saw some people getting a little up in arms about the Baker Mayfield, Russell Wilson debate.
I saw that.
I meant that comment for dynasty purposes, not for redraft. Obviously, in redraft, Wilson is way up and ahead above Baker, but from a dynasty standpoint, I think they're relatively close.
I think it's relatively close in both, and people can get all up in arms they want. The back half of last year, Baker was a better fantasy quarterback than Russell Wilson.
Right.
It is what it is.
It is. Right. It is what it is. And we are definitely happy to have helped all y'all. But that is it. The questions are done. We have wrapped them all up. If you have more questions, I posted the Discord link in here. Jump in there. It really is a very helpful tool. We see trade questions all day long, conversations about start sits throughout the week. We help you guys in whatever way we can. It's just another tool the Roto Heat team is throwing out there for you guys. Below is the link to rotoheat.com, so make sure you go there and check out. And we have another question. We will. I
was going to say you got to answer that last question.
Once I get the sales pitch out of the way, make sure you like, subscribe, share this stuff with everybody. We really do appreciate you guys doing that and helping us grow the channel and grow the brand. The Roto Heat team works hard to give you guys as good a quality of content as we can. And we thank you guys for your comments, your feedback, your thoughts. All that stuff is amazing. One last question before we end this thing. Wesley Love says, should I make a package of CH and someone else for Saquon? Absolutely. I would talk to the Saquon owner before Saquon goes off this week against Atlanta and try to get him, but you better do it quick. CH and whatever his roster need is. So if it's a wide receiver, throw some wide receiver help in there. I would be fine with doing that. Anthony, you're agreeing, I take it?
Yeah, I was thinking who could I add? I was thinking maybe CEH and Robert Woods. I would do that for Barkley. So someone of that kind of tier, I think would be worth it.
I'd give you CEH and damn near anyone to make that trade happen.
Thanks, Stubbs, for the comments. Thanks, David. We appreciate you guys hanging out in the chat with us. And Kevin wants to know, should I hold on to Tanyan? Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Hold on to Tanyan. Yeah. Absolutely a good hold. That's it. So tomorrow night, we're back with the redraft show. We haven't done it yet this year, mostly because of my inability to show up on Wednesday nights for a lot of personal reasons. We are back tomorrow night. We've got our boy Cody from Off the Schneid joining us.
Awesome.
He's gonna be with us all season. If you watched him in the off season with us, he was a blast. We're gonna have him on with Bryce and I. It's a different crew. Come back tomorrow night, same time, 9:30. We're gonna be talking fantasy with you guys. Love you. Bye.
Also, right there, playlist. Hit it. Watch the videos. Do it.